Hi everybody, it's John here with another plastic model kit review. Today I'm going to be talking about the new release of the Airfix 1/72 scale Hawker Typhoon 1B. Got a lovely image here. This isn't actually a real image of a plane, this is done by Pinterest, and I think it's somebody's model actually. It's very impressive though, but it's a nice picture. The Airfix release second generation Typhoon is the subject that I'm going to be dealing with today. Not to get mixed up with their first generation release, Hawker Typhoon, and I'm just going to quickly go through the boxings of the original releases, just so that you know that if you see one of these, please, for God's sake, don't buy it. It is bloody awful. The first generation model was released in 1959 in a Type 2 bag header kit like this. You can see the contents of the parts in the bag. There are only 30 of them, including the cockpit canopy. And for 1959, you've got to remember that in 1959 this kit was one of the few Typhoon models out and about, and it was one of Airfix's early releases. So if you do end up buying one of these and you do fancy a real challenge to build it, don't expect great results, because the kit is, honestly, it is really poor. The kit eventually went on to be released in 1962 in a standard Type 3 red stripe bag kit, and this is with Roy Cross artwork on the top of the header there. You can actually see the parts more clearly in there. The pilot definitely looks like he was cast out of wood and then moulded over the top, didn't he? Then they had what's called the MPC release. This was in 1963, the same year the bag kit was released. MPC was the American marketed brand for Airfix models in America, and that was the box artwork for the 63 release from MPC. Then you had what we call the card kit. This is a Type 4 box for Series 1 kits. All Series 1 kits in the 70s were released on cards. And basically it was a piece of card with a clear plastic blister that had all the parts and decals, and the actual card itself opened up from the back to reveal the instruction leaflet, and then when you folded it back over again, you had the colour plan and decal guide on the back flap. That's the 73 release. Then in 1992, Airfix, obviously owned by Hella decided to market the Airfix model of the Hawker Typhoon 1B. Again, it was exactly the same kit as you get from 1959 with 30 parts, but the Hella picture is actually beautiful. The picture on the box artwork made the kit look 50,000 times better than what you actually got in the box. It's a beautiful picture. I really like that picture, the Hella release. Then in 1995, Airfix went over to a new type of box format, and the artwork tended to change on the box, this time flying in daylight. Interest in these, because these were quite large boxes, and in 1995, that when these were released, they were a large box for the size of kit you got inside. I think I've made a mistake with the order here, because we're going into 2005 now, and this is the same type of box artwork but a different format where the writing for Hawker Typhoon is on the bottom. But I also want to take you back to 1982, because in 1982 Airfix released this. This is the Happy Christmas from Airfix modelling building set, and it comprised the 4 major different genres that Airfix really modelled: armour, warships, jet aircraft and propellered aircraft, and the propellered aircraft represented there was the Hawker Typhoon. If you can manage to get hold of this kit in this format with this boxing for Happy Christmas and you haven't opened it, don't open it. It's worth a bomb. I wouldn't like to think exactly how much it's worth, but it's worth a fortune. Yeah, we'll just take that off. The last release of the early first generation Typhoon was in 2009, and that's in this boxing. If you manage to get a starter set with all this lovely stuff to help you build the kit, You could probably get by with a brush, and you can probably get by with a cement, but these paints, don't even bother with them, just chuck them straight in the bin. They're absolutely terrible. Again, this is the early 59 edition. It's the last box rendering of the Series 1 first generation Hawker Typhoon, and then we get to the subject matter that I'm going to be looking at today. This is the second generation, the new tool, Hawker Typhoon 1B. This was the first box artwork it was released on in 2013, and then later the following year in 2014 it was released as a dogfight double with the Fockable FW190A8. I haven't got this particular kit, but I have got the A8 and obviously the Typhoon in separate models, so I didn't bother seeing the point of getting it. With the dogfight double set, you do get a load of paints, which really you want to throw away, 2 nice brushes, and probably just about enough adhesive to put the 2 kits together. Yeah, so the dogfight double, it's actually a nice, if you haven't got a Fockable FW190A8, that particular kit is quite nice as well, and the Typhoon is fantastic. The release model that I'm doing the review on is this one, the 2014 starter kit edition of the Hawker Typhoon 1B. This again is, as I said, the second generation. This is the new tool, and we'll go into what you get in the box. I unfortunately bought the starter set because it was the only kit that I could get at the time. They hadn't released the reboxing version of this model, and the first thing I did, I'm going to show you what the first thing I did was. Here's my kit. I'll just readjust the angle on here so that you can get an idea of what we're doing here. Here we go. That's a bit better, isn't it? Right. The first thing I did, as you can see, is cut the top off to get rid of all that horrible nasty crap that you get with it, the glue, the paints and the brushes. Wonderful. But unfortunately in doing that, I also chopped off about 25% of my paint guide. But it's only the paint guide section of the other side of the fuselage. Everything else, stenciling and everything, it's quite self-explanatory from using what's on here. It's not really an issue. I like the idea, I like the artwork on this particular plane because it shows the Typhoon for what it was really good at, which is destroying armour on the ground, hailing down hell from above. We'll open the box. As I said, you've got a nice lithograph on the back here with the paint guide and showing you where all the decals go and the stencils, and also all the detailing paintwork for the propeller and the armaments fit, which is great. So we'll open the box. We'll just chuck the box over there because, yep, and I'll open the bag now so that we can have a look at the parts in a minute. First of all, I want to talk about the decals. I've mentioned in quite a few of my videos that there are 4 top market companies that have really gone to town with their decals. Airfix, Revell, Italeri and Tamiya. They all basically use a similar standards for decals. Airfix use a company called Cartograph, and I believe Cartograph make the decals for Revell. I'm not sure about Tamiya, but I also think that Italeri have their decals made for them by Cartograph. And as you can see, I'll just bring this close to the camera here. These decals are absolutely beautiful. The clarity, the colour, the fineness of the recreation of the decals is absolutely fantastic. There's even an instrument panel there, which is really nicely printed. It's lovely. It's a really nice set of decals, that. Fin flashes are all nicely laid out. There's no problems with their register. The stencils are nice and clear. I mean, if I bring that right up to the camera and get it to focus, can I get it to focus there? You can actually read what's on those decals, and they're tiny. They're probably about 2 millimeters across. Yeah, you can read what's on them quite easily. Nice little dust cover there for the decals, which is great. You've also got a membership form. You get this in virtually all new release kits now, especially from Airfix, a membership application form, just in case you fancy being a member of the Airfix club. Whoopee. And then we get into the instructions themselves. The instructions, this is typical of Airfix's new format for instructions. Nice A4 size, usually with 2 or 3. This one actually has 5 pages of instructions that don't include the information and history of the aircraft GUNF in what I can say is probably about 5 different languages there, which is fantastic. Right, then you've got assembly instructions guide. That one's in English there, you can just see. This one here is in English, so there's lots of different other languages. And then you've got an assembly icon guide, which is down here. And this gives you all the different keys for the different procedures that you need to follow in the construction of the kit. And I'll just fold this over so that you can see what's going on here. Now, the one thing I want to state is that if you do make the mistake of buying a first generation Typhoon, you'll wish you bought this one. The original kit had 30 parts in it, and this kit has about 26 parts on each sprue, and there are 4 sprues. That doesn't include the transparency sprue. And the other thing about the two major differences between the two kits is that the options that you had with the original kit was basically to have the undercarriage up or down, and that was it. The propeller did rotate, but that's all you had. There was just a pilot and a seat which went into the interior, and there was no other detail in the interior whatsoever. With the new generation kit, Airfix have really gone to town, and in my opinion this model is probably the best 72nd scale Typhoon on the market anywhere. It builds up in 18 different steps. There's the last step there. And basically you start with the seat and the bulletproof armoured plate that goes at the back of the seat, and section 2 is your instrument panel and the gun sight, which also serves as the mount which puts the instrument panel into the fuselage. We'll look at the parts in a minute because I don't want to focus too much on what is actually in the what is actually in the instructions until I start getting into the parts. But basically that there is a lot of detail in the interior of this model, and it's not just in what you put in the fuselage, it's also what you put on top of the main wing spar box unit, which also serves as the undercarriage wheel wells. But we'll get all to that. Basically you don't start putting the fuselage halves together until section 7, and he has a lovely little pilot there. The original pilot in the Mark 1 was, in this first generation kit, it was just a joke. Section 8 and 9 is the exhaust and the tail empennage and rudder. And section 10 is to fix the lower wing to the fuselage, which you can see at the bottom there. You can see that there. There's an option to have a display stand, and the one that's actually listed on the instruction sheet here is the one for the dogfight double when you get the Focke-Wulf in the box as well. But you can get a single stalk display stand for virtually every Airfix model, and they come in various sizes. So you can even get a stand for something as big as, say, the new B-17. This is another touch that I quite like. When you put the upper wings on the lower wing in construction, you also build into the wing the cannon boxes, the actual gun wells and cannon boxes. And you have an option here, which you can see here, where you can cut the cannon box access lid out of the top of the wing, the top part of the wing here, and then you place a second part, a different part altogether, onto the front half of the wing to display the cannons inside the wing. And that's something you don't normally get until you start looking at 48 scale kits, but here it is on the 72nd. Undercarriage oleos and outer doors go in on section 12. And section 13 you have depressed tyres, which is great. It means that they actually look like there's some weight on them whilst the Typhoon sat on its wheels. Section 11 is, section 14 is to just put the undercarriage doors in the closed position. And then section 15 and 16 are the optional armaments fit. You can either have the HVAR rockets or two what look like 500-pound bombs. In section 17 is construction of the propeller, which is down here, and then section 18 to finish off, you have the propeller fit into the forward nose and an optional position canopy. You can have it in the either open or closed position, which is something you never got with the first generation kit. So the instructions are well printed, they're clear, easy to follow, they're easily keyed, and everything is arrowed, so you know exactly where everything goes. So they're actually idiot proof, which is great, because yeah, not everyone is as intelligent as Stephen Hawkins, are they? Right, I'm not going to take this out of the bag because I want to keep this in the bag, but you should be able to just see the canopy there. The canopy is really crisp, it's beautifully moulded, it's lovely and clear, and it's thin so you can see through it without any distortion, which is really nice. There's also a little part there which I think is the landing light that goes on one of the wings. So that's your transparency parts there. They're really nice, but I want to keep them in the bag because I want to keep them nice and clear for when I'm building this model later. Kit comes on 4 sprues, 4 grey plastic sprues, and they're really nicely crafted. This is sprue, I think it's sprue B. I don't know what sprue that is, it's not marked. That one's marked as sprue C. Oh, that one is marked actually, but it's in the other corner. That's sprue D. So that's sprue C. We'll get them in order so we can do them in order. This is sprue A. There's the interior that I was talking about from the fuselage. You can see the interior there. You've got various controls for the side panelling on the Typhoon's fuselage. There's even a nicely moulded well for the oil cooler there. And the instrument panel, although it hasn't got any actual details on the instrument panel itself to paint up, you have a lovely decal which will go nicely onto that. The exhaust stubs are nicely crafted, they're fine, they're really nice actually. This is a really nicely moulded kit. The pilot figure there, he's got a bit of flesh on the top of his boots, but not a huge amount. It's just like a fine line, but he's crisply moulded. You can even see his nose and eyes, which is brilliant. The wheels, this is another touch which I like. You can actually paint the wheels black, right? And then paint the insets of the inner part of the wheels silver. And then you can paint these, whatever colour they turn out to be. They'll probably be aluminium, I would have thought. And then you've got the access panels for the gun bays, which are here. And they're nicely detailed. And they will actually sit on the top of the wing that way up. So you've got the detail there, which is quite nice. And then you've got your 20mm Spano gun cannon armament bays, which are fitted there, which are on the sprue there. And they're quite nicely crafted as well. The cannons are actually quite nice. You could do quite a bit with those with a bit of paint. You can make all that come up quite nice. Sprue B. That's the other half of the wing, the other half of the fuselage rather. You can see the interior detail there, which is quite nice. There's no flash or burrs or warping or anything on this kit whatsoever. I'm not expecting there to be any problems with this kit's fit whatsoever. I just want to talk about the panel lines on the fuselage. I'm going to try and bring this close to the camera so it can focus in and you can actually see what I mean by the panel lines. The panel lines on this kit are actually recessed panel lines, which means the access panels are protruding from the recesses that they're fitted to. which is how it really is on a real aeroplane. In the olden days, especially in the 60s, models used to be covered in rivets. I think the first generation Typhoon isn't. I think it's just flush. The kit has no panelling on it whatsoever, but this one is actually detailed quite nicely, and the panel lines are crisp, they're not overdone, and they're recessed, which is really nice. The wheel wells, which are here, they also have the floor pan for the instrument panel, which is there. Can you see it? For the interior cockpit rather. So the wheels obviously fit into there, the top wings go over the top, and then in between where the fuselage lies, you've got this section here which actually has your rudder pedal guides. There's the hole for the joystick, and the pilot would sit above here, but he's actually fixed into the plane by these location holes here in the fuselage sides. The propeller is really nicely crafted. It's pretty true as well. The Typhoon's propeller was massive. There's the 500-pound bombs, which are nicely and faithfully reproduced. The rudder is quite nicely crafted and moulded with the control surfaces on the Typhoon were covered in fabric, even though the rest of the aircraft was actually covered in an aluminium sheet, a duralumin sheet they called it, I think. But the control surfaces, the rudder elevators and the ailerons were all covered in fabric, and that looks quite nice. I like that. The sprue C, this is the lower wing, and again, I might bring that into the camera so you can see the actual panel lines on the lower wing. They're recessed as well, and they're very nicely moulded, very nice indeed. You also have a nicely detailed, I hope you can make that out actually on the camera there, it's going to focus in for you to see it, but it's got a nicely detailed oil cooler there with radiator fin marks going down either side of the supercharger flow. Pilot C, all faithfully reproduced. There's all the ground attack rockets. That's the pilot's bulletproof bulkhead for the back of his seat there. Everything is nicely moulded. It's really crisp. There's a few small parts there which you're going to have to take a bit of care of and getting out, but you've got the joystick here. That's probably the part that's going to need the most care. The joystick is actually a slanted joystick, which is true. The real Typhoon had a joystick which slanted over to the starboard side. I don't really understand why that was, but it did. I've seen interior photographs, and sure enough, it's exactly what it's like. Tail wheel there is a lot better and crafted than the original series tail wheel, and this one I believe you can have in the open or closed position, which again is quite nice. And then sprue D, you have the upper wings here. Again, I'll try and bring this in so you can see the recessed panels, but the recessed panel lines on this kit are very nice. Really nicely moulded. The Airfix have done a fantastic job in moulding this model the way they've done it. I can't fault them. They're the rocket rails, which of course are separate. A lot of early kits had the rocket rails with the rockets in place, and they were made it difficult to paint the rocket rails. But this kit is going to be a lot easier to paint than a lot of previous models were. Tailplane surfaces there. They're nicely recessed lines as well, and even the doors, the undercarriage doors in the closed position, they're quite nice too, as you can see them there. Very nicely moulded. Really nice job. Airfix have done a fantastic job on this kit. Really impressed, and I'm really looking forward to setting this in motion and getting it going. I'll just put all this gump back in the bag, because there's just a couple of things I want to go through before I finish this video. It's basically just to give you a bit of information on the model, and so that you can make up your mind as to whether you want one of the older generation kits, which might be a little bit cheaper, or whether you want to go the whole hog and go for it. The model subject is the Airfix Hawker Typhoon Mark 1B. It's a second generation retool kit which was originally released in 2013, and it's made in 1/72nd scale, and it's actually released in Series 2. The original first generation kit was always a Series 1 model. The model builds up to 5¼ inches long by 6½ inches in span and about 1¾ inches high when it's sitting on its undercarriage. And it's built from 71 grey plastic parts and 2 clear parts, making 73 parts in total. The parts are all on 4 sprues and 1 transparency. The retail cost of the kit, I paid $9.99 for this one, but that was about a year and a half ago, and I think this kit now retails for anything between £10 and £11 depending on the shop. And my overall impression are that it's leaps and bounds better than not just the original release Airfix kit, but in my opinion it's the best 72nd scale model of a Typhoon 1B released anywhere. The options for rockets or bombs armaments fit is super, the decals are fantastic, and further options for open gun bays and open or closed cockpit canopy. You also have open or closed undercarriage, and that includes a tail wheel, and it makes this kit a real winner. And in my opinion, I don't think you can buy a better rendition of the 72nd scale Typhoon 1B anywhere, and I think it's money well spent. So if you fancy a Typhoon, get yourself in the shops, get yourself one of these. I thoroughly recommend it. Hope this video has been of some use to you, and I'll see you for the next one not too long. Bye bye lads.